A man looked me dead in the eye and said, "Lieutenant Bellamy, you think you're the smartest kid in the room. There's more to life than being smart." At the time, I dismissed it. I was young, I was confident, and I was convinced that being right was the most important thing in the world. Years later, I came to realize that moment was one of the most valuable lessons I've ever received. We hear the word mentorship, and we imagine some wise, all-knowing guide, Yoda, Mr. Miyagi, Dumbledore, the kind of person who takes you under their wing, invests in your potential, gives you the exact lessons you need at just the right moment in a way that is optimal for your learning style. In real life, mentorship isn't perfect, and mentors aren't perfect. The only thing you can affect is being the perfect protégé. Let's talk about the mentor I didn't want. That man correcting me was Colonel Terrence Trenchard. He was my team leader in Iraq. If you'd asked me then if he was my mentor, I would have laughed. Or maybe I would have argued with you, as I often argued with him. At the time, I didn't have a lot of respect for him. We thought he had his issues as a combat leader. He wasn't charismatic. He didn't inspire followership. To be honest, I didn't like the man. Not that that's necessary. But he was trying to teach me. The problem was I was too caught up in proving myself right all the time to recognize it. I argued with him constantly. I focused on his shortcomings, ignoring my own. I found every reason to dismiss his advice because I didn't like the way he delivered it, or I didn't think the lessons were the ones that I needed. And yet, despite my own resistance, I was learning. That's the thing about mentorship. You have to focus on the lesson, not the mentor. They're not all Mary Poppins. Sometimes you get the medicine without the spoonful of sugar to make it go down. I was missing the big picture. At that time, my world was logistics, resupply, training our partnered Iraqi soldiers. I was obsessed with making sure our daily operations ran smoothly. That occupied all of my time. My job was to keep people supplied, get them what they needed, ensure that the soldiers were training and going out in operations. I was focused on the trees, if we can use that metaphor. Colonel Trenchard, on the other hand, was looking at the whole forest. I didn't realize this until months later when I was awarded a medal for the deployment. I remember standing there as they read the citation that Colonel Trenchard had written, and I almost started laughing. Of all the things I had done in Iraq, the one thing that earned me that medal was something that had taken up just a couple of hours of my time, a routine task, a simple supply drop, a few pallets of barbed wire, some security equipment, barriers, to help fortify polling stations for the Iraqi election. To me, it was just another check on my list of things to do that day. Colonel Trenchard knew it was a defining moment because in the grand scheme of things, ensuring an election could take place, giving people the ability to vote despite the threat of violence, that was far more important than anything else we did. And yet, I had almost completely missed it. I had spent months obsessing over every detail of our day-to-day operations, while he was focused on the long-term impact. Colonel Trenchard told me a lot of times, never confuse effort with results, and that was the mistake I had made. I focused on the work. He knew what had a real impact. Don't always know what's important while you're knee-deep. But a good mentor can help you see what truly matters and keep you focused on that North Star. Years later, I found myself working near the man again at Quantico, and I went to him seeking career advice. He still had plenty of advice and lessons to give me. By that point, I had matured, and I had started to listen and value some of the lessons he gave me. And I kind of realized just how much I had missed when I was younger and working with him. He taught me a lot of things that I didn't appreciate at the time. He taught me how to write fitness reports, performance evaluations for my Marines. Again, focusing on outcomes rather than just effort. And today I credit some of my ability to write effectively back to those lessons that he taught me. But here's another reality of mentorship. Sometimes, even when you're ready to listen, not all of the lessons apply to you. When I reconnected with Colonel Trenchard, he gave me guidance on how to compete for battalion command, how to advance through the Marine Corps, how to position myself for high-level leadership, make my way up the ranks. He was teaching me how to do what he had done. I was going a different way. But this time, I was mature enough to hold my tongue and listen for the lessons that I could apply to my own path. And that's when I realized something else. Mentors are people too. Their wisdom, even though it may exceed yours, is limited by their own experience. Your mentor teaches you what he knows or she knows. It's up to you to decide what actually applies to your path and how. Here's what I know about mentorship now. Number one, your mentor doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, they're almost certainly not. They're going to have flaws. They may not be great communicators. They may be limited by their own experience. That doesn't mean they don't have something valuable to teach you. Number two, you have to focus on the lesson, not the delivery. Sometimes the best advice comes shouted, wrapped in frustration, in an argument, surrounded by curse words maybe. If you only listen when it's delivered perfectly, wrapped in a bow the way you want it, you're going to miss a lot of valuable teaching. Number three is you have to be willing to listen before you can actually learn. There were things that Colonel Trenchard told me in Iraq that didn't sink in, mainly because of my attitude, until years later. At the time, I wasn't ready to hear them and wasn't going to learn anything from them. The fourth thing is that mentors come and go. I worked for Colonel Trenchard in 2007, again in 2010 in Iraq, and then years later I saw him at Quantico 2016-17. I haven't seen him since then. But his lessons I still carry with me. And today when I help people with their careers, when I coach job seekers, rewrite resumes, teach others how to position themselves for success, in a way I'm passing down the very same lessons that I once ignored, at least temporarily. Because in the end, mentorship isn't about finding the perfect mentor. It's about being the kind of protege who's willing to listen and learn.